Below is a long, engaging, emotional story based on the title you shared. It's written in plain paragraphs, paced to fit an approximately 15-minute YouTube narration, with relatable characters, emotional depth, real challenges, and a powerful, inspiring message by the end. The night Clara Reynolds agreed to go on a blind date wasn't supposed to be about romance. 2 hours earlier, she had been juggling IV bags in the emergency room, exhausted from a 16-hour shift at Mercy General Hospital. Her best friend, Megan, had called in a panic. Her blind date was waiting at the cafe and she couldn't bring herself to go. "Please," Megan had begged. "Just take my place. Sit for 30 minutes and bail. I'll owe you." Clara didn't want to go. She had scrubs still in her bag, a mountain of bills, and a heart weary from watching life and death unfold every night. But she also knew Megan needed her, and so she walked into the Lantern Cafe clutching a lukewarm cup of hospital coffee, feeling more like a substitute than a date. At the next table sat a man whose presence felt too polished to be ordinary. His suit was tailored, his hair immaculately styled, his posture confident but tinged with a loneliness that seemed familiar. When she sat down, he looked up, surprised, curious, and instantly kind. His name was Andrew Carter, and he was waiting for someone who never showed. Andrew was 38, a successful tech CEO who had built a company from scratch and lost his wife 3 years earlier to a sudden illness. Since then, the life he had once controlled with calculated precision felt fragile and unfamiliar. Blind dates were an attempt to feel alive again, but they always ended the same: polite conversation, forced smiles, burying conversations behind scripted stories. Clara arrived unprepared, but something in the way she spoke about her long shifts, her compassion for others, and her stubborn optimism despite exhaustion drew him in. He didn't see a replacement date, he saw a real person. He saw eyes that had witnessed suffering and still chose kindness. He saw laughter that came not from perfection, but from survival. Their first conversation flowed effortlessly. Clara spoke about waiting for her cousin's call, about her parents who lived 2 states away, about the hospital's night nurses who felt more like family than friends. Andrew spoke about being a father to a spirited 7-year-old daughter, Emma, whose laughter filled his quiet home, and about the emptiness he felt when the house fell silent each night. When the waiter announced last orders, neither wanted to leave. They walked in the crisp night air, sharing stories about dreams they once had and fears they still carried. Yet both knew something fragile and meaningful had begun. But life, as it always does, tested them. The first challenge came from their worlds, 2 universes far apart. Clara worked nights and weekends, often missing plans, phone calls, and messages because patience came first. Andrew's schedule was unpredictable too, not because of emergencies, but because of board meetings, investors, and a daughter with relentless energy. Their calendars collided, dates were rescheduled, texts went unanswered, doubts crept in. Clara began to pull away, convinced that love didn't fit into her chaotic life. She worried Andrew deserved someone with stability, someone who could show up without missing a shift, someone whose life wasn't dictated by pager beeps and hospital alarms. Andrew felt her distancing like a physical ache. He confronted his fears too. What if Clara left because his world was weird and complicated? What if a CEO and a nurse were too different? But then he remembered something his late wife once told him: love isn't about perfect schedules or shared social status. It's about showing up. And he did. One rainy Friday, after Clara missed another dinner because she was helping an elderly patient through a crisis, Andrew showed up at Mercy General with flowers, simple daisies, her favorite. He didn't demand explanations. He didn't complain about cancelled plans. He just stood there, soaking wet, waiting. Clara led him through the crowded emergency room to a quiet corridor. She explained her fears, that she couldn't balance love with her calling, that she worried she would hurt him, that she felt unworthy of something good. Her voice trembled with honesty, not drama, the kind only exhausted hearts can offer. Andrew didn't try to talk her out of her truth. Instead, he reached for her hand and said, "I know your work doesn't end at 5 p.m. I know you save people. What I want most is to be part of your world, not to distract you from it." Slowly, tears broke through Clara's walls. For the first time in months, she felt seen, not for the sacrifices she made, but for the person she had become because of them. Their second challenge was deeper: acceptance from those around them. Andrew's friends saw Clara as too soft, too worn by life. Clara's coworkers worried she was getting attached to someone whose world she couldn't possibly understand. Rumors rippled. unsolicited advice, judgment, comparisons. But they stood firm. Andrew invited Clara to his daughter Emma's school recital. Clara hesitated, afraid she would fail at being the perfect bonus mom, but Emma greeted her with a shy smile that melted every fear. By the end of the night, Emma was asking Clara to read her bedtime stories, and Clara, for the first time, saw a future where her heart belonged in more than one place. Months passed. They learned how to communicate without fear. They learned how to apologize when miscommunication caused hurt. They learned that love wasn't a perfect script, but something written in imperfect, unforgettable moments, a shared cup of tea at dawn, a child's laughter echoing down a hallway, a nurse coming home with bruised feet but a heart willing to give more. One evening, wrapped in blankets on Andrew's porch, watching stars scattered across the sky, Andrew asked Clara to stay, not because he needed her to fill a role, but because she had chosen him again and again, just as he had chosen her. Clara looked at the man who saw her for who she was, not the friend who backed out, not the nurse who worked endless shifts, but a whole person capable of deep love. She whispered yes. Their love wasn't perfect. It was messy, brave, and real. It didn't erase past pain, but it transformed it into something gentle and unbreakable. And in that transformation, they found not only each other but the courage to keep loving when life didn't give them reasons to. In the end, Clara didn't just replace a friend on a blind date. She stepped into a life that taught her love isn't a luxury reserved for the few, it's a commitment to stay when the world encourages you to run. And Andrew, the lonely CEO once afraid to try again, discovered that love doesn't require perfection, only presence. They held on, not because they had to, but because they chose to. And in that choice lay there forever. If you want, I can also format this with chapter timestamps or voiceover cues to make scripting the video even easier.